iHeartRadio, Black Excellence.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our third episode of our iHeart Black Excellence series. My name is Leah Abrahams, and today I am here with Jamar McNeil, Azalea Hart, and Dames Nellas, plus a special guest, Michie Mee, the legend.
Legendary.
Very excited for that. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we're going to be talking about female Black representation within the media. Now, we've had some really good conversations prior with our other episodes where we're talking about Black representation, of course, in our space, in the industry, but to zone in and be even more specific, Black female representation. And not only that, but to break it even more down, Black female representation within our city, within Toronto. Now, Toronto's supposed to be made up of so many cultures. It's actually the most multicultural city in the world. I did my research. It's indeed true.
How
It's
fresh. I thought it was Queens, New York.
No.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that because I'm a native of Queens. But Queens and Toronto are like, I would say one and the same, honestly. Like Queens, number one, Queens is just about the size of Toronto, is mad big. But like makeup wise, they look identically the same in terms of ethnicities.
The only reason I say that is quick story. I was doing like a red carpet and there were some dudes from like the Associated Press there, and he was saying he's from Queens, and we just got on the diversity topic, and then he said Queens is the most diverse place on the planet, and I said no, you're mistaken.
No, it's not true.
And so then I started sticking up for Toronto. But my man pulled out a receipt and I had to eat it right before I
What's his receipt?
The receipt, this was going back like 2019, I think. So it might have changed since then, which is why I had to ask. But he pulled out the receipt and he showed me a stat, and I was like, "Nah, you're right. But
I'm the bridge. I'm bridge. I'm from Queens, but I'm in Toronto. I'm telling you right now, they're the same.
Same.
I'm telling you, they're the same, but we are a little bit more. And I have some stats to tell you.
She's like, what did I walk into? Like,
I know
what
we started the show like this. Yo, that's my bad. I'll take the that is my bad.
Intro.
Leah was going good.
Like, what is this?
Whole intro. Yes, the intro's still going. I just want to
back on track. Sorry.
Okay, back on track. But listen, I do want to give a stat. We have over 250 different cultures here. I don't know if Queens can say the same. That's all I'm saying.
On my block alone, we had Puerto Ricans, our Jamaican
oh my
asses.
God, how many you list?
We had Southern Blacks. We had
251.
We had Guyanese. It was crazy. We had the Jews.
We're here all day.
It was crazy.
No, it's okay. Fine. But my point is, Toronto is extremely diverse.
Yes.
And I don't know if we're seeing that.
No, I was going to say we are. We're totally diverse.
Oh, you agree?
I'm listening.
That's great. I not only that, but I don't know if we're seeing that exact representation off screen, on screen when it comes to the media industry. In my opinion, no, I don't think we do. Specifically when it comes to Black female representation. But we do have great influences that are in the city right now. Of course, like Michie Mee sitting right here with us, Julie Black, Tracy Melchor, Tracy Moore, Keisha Shante, the list goes on. We have greats, but I think, compared to our counterparts, our white counterparts, it's nothing compared, right? It's extremely, it's a large discrepancy, I would say. And I don't know why. There's reasons that we could get to, but I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Do you think that there's not enough Black female representation within our city? And do you have a reason why? Do you know why that might be? Posing it to you.
I would love to start with Michie and just talk about, when we're talking about representation and the question that Leah posed, tell us about how hard it is to access those doors, those keys, to get those keys. I mean, you're a pioneer. You were one of the first.
Not just female Toronto, just hip hop
in general.
Artists. So well, I think that's a great place to start. Like, tell us about how hard it is to get that access as a Black female.
It's absolutely hard because there's, all the provinces, not everyone, hip hop didn't originally resonate with everyone at first. And it was very dilute here because the main place that hip hop was in Toronto. And because of that, we had to just focus on the cultures that were here, which is very West Indian, as you pointed out, just like Queens. And we didn't have access to a lot of West Indians weren't in the infrastructure. So there's no one that understood anything about our music more than the caravana and the things that were available to understand our culture. So with that said, how does the infrastructure really reflect it? It's still now very hard to fly from one part of the country to the other part of the country. So then there's that, the demographics, we didn't know where people were the consumers of, hip hop or dance hall or reggae, where the consumers were. There was no outlets in terms of places to perform. So how are you going to go out there and perform? And then how's it going to resonate with the listeners and all that good stuff? We didn't have a structure in terms of radio where you could play it in a city that, had a lot of hip hop. We were still underground mixtapes. I was still selling mixtapes on the bus. People were passing around mixtapes. Everyone, the adventure was to go to New York and bring back the hip hop here. So with that said, there was no infrastructure, right? And the infrastructure kind of came when the Junos made the category for rap. And we had all that in there. And prior to that, there was no category. We were still just finding our way in the music scene, period. So we were still trying to identify that we were not disco. We were not going to go out of style. It's not a fad. Yes, there are Black people in Canada. Yes, there's quote unquote ghettos or areas that, reflect poverty and that we can speak about in the music. There are rec centers, there's shootings happening. There's so much things to talk about, but yet they didn't believe us yet. So if we were trying to prove our way into the genre, how is the infrastructure here going to help us? We were still trying to find our own identity. So with that said, it was very hard. It's still hard. Now, fast forward now, there's, everyone that's lived through those experiences, they're just trying to come together and help the new generation, because now it's worldwide in terms of internet and all the platforms that are out there. So it's hard to get the right people in the right positions that can identify who can actually help the demographics here in hip hop.
It's funny. We were speaking a few episodes ago how young and fresh hip hop is in comparison to other music genres and music forms. When you were coming up in the game, I think one of the things you just said was essentially you were almost like fighting 2 or 3 fights, being a female, being from Canada, having, Caribbean roots. Like that's the difference, I think, between Toronto and a lot of other places where, artists come up. It's like, we know who we are and we stick true to our roots, but like you're talking about like credibility and being able to go down to the New York scene and like hold your own in that regard. But when you fast forward, that was 20 years, 30 years, we've seen some infrastructure build up a little bit, but now we're at a point where I think, and this goes even to what Leah was saying off the top, I feel like we're at a turning point in all things, not just in music or entertainment or media, but in all things, because our generation, Leah and I are the same age, Azalea is similar in age. We're looking at something that we've seen.
Yeah, you just grandfather me like what?
Well, we are the same age.
Wait a second. I'm joking.
But you're a little bit
grandpa the hell out of me.
From the same fabric. But what I'm trying to say is, this is going to be our first kick at the can as millennials, getting the opportunity and getting those keys to those seats that have, historically been narrow-minded when it comes to hip hop and entertainment and diversity and that kind of thing, right? So I really feel like at this point, we're embarking on something that could be great, provided we're allowed the opportunity or earn those opportunities and not looked at the other way, because there is diversity in the culture, and especially in Toronto, we kicked off saying you got people from all walks of life. But the reality of it is they all know hip hop. And if you need any further proof, look what happened at this Sunday. The Super Bowl was massive. No one cares about the game at all. Only people are talking about is that halftime show.
Yeah. Things like that. We just have to get the people that actually identify, whether young or old. I don't think it even has a generational issues only comes up with the history of it. In terms of what sounds good, what's good, we know music. So I just think people that can identify with the music and the right people in the places of position just help, like yourself. That helps.
I went to the flower store, the proverbial flower store, Michie, before we came in. I want to give you the flowers right now. For those who are tuning into the podcast and may not be completely familiar with the history of A1 Michie Mee, from like the age of 14, I believe was the age, right, Michie, when you kind of got started from the age of 14. Michie Mee linked up with, if hip hop is like a Greco-Roman, what do you call it? Like one of those myths. Michie Mee linked up with the gods of hip hop. We're talking about Boogie Down Productions. All right. So we're talking about like Scott LaRock, You talking about KRS-One, these are the gods, like the, you know what I'm saying? And then Michie Mee came on and was named a queen. Like Michie Mee is a queen of hip hop, running around with Roxanne Shante, Queen Latifah, Moni Love. These are the queens of this genre that is like the largest genre on earth. And you came up in that royal palace of hip hop. And I just want to say, number one, thank you for who you are and what you are to this culture, what you are to this city, and just what you are in general, because I know it was hard. It was crazy back then, because in the words of Biggie Smalls, you never thought that hip hop would take it this far. I know when you were handing out those mixtapes on the bus, I mean, let me ask you, did you think that hip hop at some point would be on the big stage, like Super Bowl, or did you think that we'd be having a conversation like this someday? What were your impressions about what was to come?
We really didn't know. We just knew it was so underground. We were a part of it. It was new. We just know we weren't going for the disco. School dances were so rock and roll. We loved rock and roll because we couldn't get away from it, and we loved it, but we came from something else. So we were trying to, how do you anti-school dances? We don't want to, we're still at school. We're still supporting each other. So our fun was on the bus. We would almost segregated the basketball courts, giving out mixtapes. So it was very hard, but we knew that the music wasn't going to go anywhere. How it was going to develop and all the different influences that were going to affect it, we didn't know that. So just being a part of it, even my friends, we were really the hardcore artists that were just really, they taught me so much. When I went to New York, I learned so much from all those artists that you mentioned. And they really were receptive to me saying that, okay, I was from Canada. And without that, I wouldn't have been able to plant my foot so heavy in America for Canada to even recognize and recognize me and what I could bring to the table. It was really the relationships that were built from just traveling. As many artists will tell you, eventually, whether they went back then or whether they go now, when you go there and you meet other artists, just that chemistry that you look for, that, between artists, whether you're working, whether you're doing a show, whether you're just networking and meeting, there's so much layers of publicists, stylists, makeup artists. There's so many layers now. Back then, we were a publicist, we were a stylist, we were the makeup artist. We didn't have layers of people to network with. So when you talk about those people, yeah, the artists were friends. The artists gravitated to artists. So, and then everyone blew up. And then when they did the business part of the music business came in, they blew up so much that they never forgot me. And that's the really cool thing. And Canada has allowed me to be able to live my genre on the front lines. So because of that, and they never forgot me, kind of went really good and it worked out well and we're still growing from it. So that Super Bowl halftime proved it all. That wrapped it up in a nutshell for me. I think everyone went nuts.
We were all talking, Leah, we were talking about how when we were even approaching this topic about women and representation, how, when you're looking through the Canadian roster, it's actually a little challenging, right? Like to find a long list of names. And we were wondering if we could just talk about, what challenges do women have specifically? If you could speak to, I don't know if there's any.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a bunch for me too. I was a woman doing hip hop and an immigrant. Those were the three hardest things. I was like, hey, I'm Canadian. I keep saying the same examples because those are the three barriers. So it's like, okay, once you accept I'm Canadian, it still wasn't Canadian enough. You're from somewhere else. Once I could rap, they'll be like, okay, you could rap, but you're not American enough. And the only thing that kept me, what you can't tell me don't tell me I'm not Jamaican enough. Don't tell me I'm not African enough. So these things added value to me, my creativity. So I didn't leave it. And thank God, because that is what's nurturing your talent and saving your money saves you. So these little things are what, if you keep your identity, there's no one that can take it from you. There was no industry that kind of put me out there. The industry and artists, we helped each other because we were new. So there was no one that could say, there was no examples. We knew of the Liberty Silvers. Come on, we got to give props to Liberty Silver, Atlanta, Bridgewater. There were so many, the Glenn Lewises. There's so many artists that were just grassroots messengers. There's so many, I can go on with the list, but there was nothing set up in order for them to be spread up across Canada, spread out, advertised, marketed, anywhere you want to put to it. There was no marketing behind everything. We're still learning marketing. Thank God for social media because it's giving another life. I'm relaunching vinyl because vinyl has given not only hip hop, but urban genres, period, another life. Because before then, reggae really resonated in vinyl, right? So a lot of things are changing and coming back. So I really do enjoy the journey. I love seeing the growth. I see things come and go, and some things stuck and some things didn't. You know, the MySpace, the DATs, the DATs, like
The
things
DATs.
came, things left. And now just seeing how different platforms grow like this. It's just, you know, any older artist can tell you the time that has been cut down, but yet there's so much, they've got new things that you got to consume your time with now. So the work ethics is still there. You still need to commit to your niche, your genre, your work. You still have to commit. It doesn't become, I know a lot of people say easier now, you can just do this. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to do. So I think either way, it comes down to the artist committing to their art and their creativity and building really cool teams around them and just finding your way.
I have a question for you in regards to like the industry. Because when you first kind of got into the industry, there was no industry, as you mentioned. It was just, you know, artists and people in the park and throwing lyrics together, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. Then all of a sudden it becomes a viable business to the music business and the record business. We see things like the Junos add the rap category. Now, I was very young at the time, but looking at it in retrospect now, it seems that around the cusp of the millennium, like 98, 99, 2000, 2001, there was actually a pumped up infrastructure around hip hop here in Toronto. And the only reason I say that is from the outside looking in, but I remember acts like Choclair. I remember acts like the Rascals. I remember acts like Cardi, obviously. And it almost seemed at that point, they had become as big as the Jay-Z's. And, you know, because they were being put on that stage, they had big videos that, you know, that kind of thing. Like, and then all of a sudden I felt like it kind of went away. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I wonder if you could kind of speak to that. Am I just totally off base, or was there some sort of infrastructure injection into hip hop? And then they start looking at numbers and data and be like, this isn't doing anything. And then, you know.
No, there was a lot. There was, as you mentioned, that prior, and with that, there was the Jellystones, the ghetto concept, down to earth. Like we had a genre that spread from east to west. It was just, and then you know what? The mixtapes, the cassette tapes got locked down. Record stores were going, Sam the Record Man went HMV. There was such a transition. Clubs were, there was clubs like Bamboo that were reopening on the lakeshore that had a history from Queen Street. So it was, the whole city was just changing. And I think with that, people were growing up. No one knew where the music was going to take it, but they knew that they were putting a lot of guns and hoes and strippers and all kind of in it, right? And it would sell. It was not like, I was all against it, but it was just like, you could see just a lot of things changing. The digital world was changing. Internet became a factor. Downloading CDs became fainted. So there was so much in transition there in the culture and the fabric of the actual music business. So for Toronto, we're very small, but yet big, small in consuming, but very small in big in consuming, but small in infrastructure to reflect anything that we can do about it. So when things were happening, they weren't just happening to Toronto, they were happening worldwide. So imagine poor little Toronto trying to reestablish ourselves, but still stay, because Canadians, we love music so much, with or without structure, we just keep going. There's less incentive, specifically for the females, but tell a DJ here that's been DJing then to stop. No, you become an A&R, you become thing, you find a way to, to do something. There's just so much creativity now and so much work to do. There's so much insight that you can help. A lot of people are managing, just even directing, pointing without paperwork. Like you can just help people in a way that there's enough now, if you can get your stuff out there, that you can compensate those that are around you, that help you. There's grants. I know we don't want to get stuck on applying for just grants, but they do assist. If you worked hard enough, get your money back. You know what I mean? There's ways that you can find and help yourself, but it really comes down to the music, because if the consumer doesn't like your music, we can talk about infrastructure all day. It's still going to be a fan-based genre, because I watched the industry kind of turn around and do what I say again, reggae and dancehall has been doing. If you're not popular, if you don't have a single, if you don't have the music, they had no infrastructure. So if the songs don't get up, but yet now if you put the music on, when you see streams, streams and this streams, it's in every territory. I'm most known in India, and I'm most known in Italy, I'm most known whatever, but you can't get out there. You can't who is, you know what I mean? So there's this yin and yang of pulling and tugging, but you can find ways as an artist to really get yourself out there and do other things. I like to see when artists turn entrepreneurs. I love it. It's the best thing about hip hop, that you can find another way to incentivize yourself and just find another way and a reason why you're doing it, while not being so competitive and being so, it's still a competitive business, but you can find a way to kind of help without being so competitive. And that was the thing with women. As soon as one came out, the labels would sign one similar to that one and put them up against each other. And it became, so it was like, okay, so that's not even in our control. So they act like female MCs weren't out there. They're not trying. If you tell the story now, you're gonna have documentaries of this female. It was like, where were they hiding? There was no place to kind of market them. And there wasn't enough marketing money. So we can go on.
That seems so crazy to me. That seems so crazy to me, because when you look at the audience of the average, hip hop, like, it's not to say that there aren't women that listen to hip hop, but it's like a majority male audience for years and years and years. Like, I've always wondered why it seems that we can have 11 Atlanta rappers rapping about the same thing, but only one female, right? Like, we had most recently we had Nicki, and then we had Cardi, but if you look at them, and then we have Meg now, but if you look at them, they're never really rolling at the same time. It's like, Shiloh, for you first, okay, your run is over, you get the back burner.
It's just who's signing them.
Like, I guess to me, but it's just such a strange topic. And I think that's where the conversation really needs to go now, because like, we've been mostly a music-based, topic, given that we have a guest on the show, Michie, that's where she made her bread and butter. That's what she does. But we have, both Leah and Azalea, who are trying to carve out their own lane in the media space.
Yeah, we need balance though. We just need balance. I just think, I just sort of get you. I'm just saying
no,
part of that reason is
but
we need this balance.
Do you think the industry puts women up against each other? Like,
all the time.
The industry pits women
against each other, especially in marketing. I think it's just like, I don't know who gets off in the marketing room every time a female artist comes out and somebody signs another one. And I get it, because it can sell, but it's just not the only way to sell. I mean, that's why Lauryn Hill is still untouchable. It's just like they're forgetting about the balance, because a couple people that have the position that have the marketing money to actually push behind it, that's what they like. They gravitate to what's selling, and you can't wrong that. There just should be a balance, and there's just so much investors now in music and the genre. I just think that more balances are coming out, because when you go to other demographics like Africa, you see different people gravitate to different stuff, and it's still the old school 90s vibe is just anywhere, because I could just rap anywhere, even though they're aware of everything that's being, all the hot stuff, the Megans, the Shensi, the Buggery. When you still just go somewhere and rap, they still appreciate it. So if that was marketed a little bit more, but it's coming, because there's so much independent marketers, but people want money. This is music business. People want money. It's a business. So the ass and the tits and the good look and is selling. You can't deny it. I mean, there's a market for it. Right?
How much pressure was there to get into that? Because that's not really your vibe, but like, how much pressure is there, like, realistically on a day-to-day basis when you see the ass and tits like selling? Is there a real pressure, or is it in your head?
It's in your head, because I really do think the women know what they want. I mean, even if you could get as many likes as you want and all the whatever, can that translate to packing a show? Like, even if the artists that do it, if they can pack a show, you can't knock it. If they're not, I just look for the day when it adds up, like, the majority that are getting the attention, then you can do that. You're not opening for nobody, or you're not whatever, or do it together, balance it. If it's not individually that person bringing that the way it seems, and balance it a bit, put some other women in there, because it doesn't hurt. It just gives younger audiences, older audience, to show that there's balance. You have older people hating hip hop. Why would they hate hip hop? Hip hop is a beautiful thing. It helps so many people grow. It heals. We put it in, commercials. It sells cars.
Look, man, Super Bowl. Let's just be honest. It's Super Bowl. Like, let's be honest for a second. Like,
but I don't know what internet you're on though, Dames. But like, we're celebrating the Super Bowl. But Azalea and Leah, I don't know if you guys have seen, but on the internet, there's a lot of people complaining about the Super Bowl performance. There are a lot of people.
You see, okay.
There are a lot of people who are complaining and saying that, the NFL is going too far to placate to Black people. What? That was that was not a great performance. I'm seeing those conversations.
You really? Like, I'm be honest. Trolls. I'm on the internet and I'm looking at some stuff and I'm like, wow, I never thought so-and-so would be giving it up like that. Like,
yeah, no, there are a lot of people who are also not, I mean, just go to like Texas Twitter, they might not really, they might want Garth Brooks back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they don't want it to happen again, but that's the balance.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
luckily that's not the majority. That's not the takeaway of the NFL or of the Super Bowl performance.
Wasn't
I think
mine.
I think most people were just like appreciative that we're here now, that we're being able to celebrate hip hop on a main stage, where probably like 20 years ago this would be unheard of. There's no
but
way.
I think it's 20 years too late. Like,
I agree with you.
Them dudes could have been on stage years ago, like all of them.
And should have been. Even 30 years ago when they were, around, when they were popular.
Well, let's be honest for a second here, because I know they were throwing around like that was the first time hip hop had representation on the Super Bowl stage, and I kind of like agree and disagree with that. You know what I mean? Like we saw,
not as in like a feature act. You know what I'm saying? Like not.
But I mean, like, where do we chalk Beyonce up in the spectrum? Like, is she a R&B artist? Is she a pop artist? I would be like,
this was specifically rap.
But also the reason it was, but you got to keep in mind it was in LA too. If that was in Miami this year, who's doing the halftime show? Like, is it that or is it somebody else? You know what I mean? Anyhow, we're like totally off on a different tangent. It was cool, but to be honest with you, it kind of aligns with what we were discussing the last go round in regards to marketing and advertising. Because Michie, you just said like, who's marketing? So we could talk all we want about like the artists doing the infrastructure thing. Do we have venues to go play at? How do we find audience, gain market share, yada yada yada? But the reality of it is, if there's nobody putting up any money to market the product or market you as a person, whether that be in music, whether that be, as a personality or talent or a host or whatever, then we have the issue that we need to address, which nobody wants to address, right? Because ultimately, like you said, it's all about the money. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. And marketing and advertising drives dollars, So should we be looking elsewhere? Like, do we need seats over there as well as over here? Or like, how can we get around some of those barriers in order to break down some of these walls looking forward into the future? Like,
it's good music, because the kids in the hood or the certain places in the Caribbean that have hit songs don't have anything. So that just comes to tell you, like, we can talk about marketing all you want, but not all you want, but it's all we want, because we need marketing and put it on the big scale. But there are some people that are doing numbers that have nothing. So I just think that that's been proven so many times that you just got to put out good music. If you put out good music, people put out music for different reasons. Some people put out music. The music that gets the marketing is the competitive market. So that's a whole other level. So there's levels to this. So with the levels to this now, if you're playing the marketing game, that's a whole other level. If you're paying, I'm an artist, I'm from my community, I just want to support the community. Hey, come out on this Friday, we do an open showcase so we can find the next big act for that marketing to lock onto. I mean, I think everything has a place, and the little marketing money, those little showcases that we do all by ourselves, that is still marketing, and that is still an asset. Just as somebody putting 10K behind Spotify, I don't even want to say, because you need to market. You have to have that money if you want to play that game on that level. So I just like, when we celebrate artists, we have to celebrate the people that believe in them, that gave them the money to things, not just the artist. There's a team of people working behind them. So, you just got to fight till you get picked up, acknowledged by someone who can help you with the marketing. You got to, you can apply, don't wait, just keep moving. But it comes down to having a good song, having your audience, knowing your audience, and knowing who you are. Because after marketing comes to you, you could freeze up on a Hot 107 freestyle. I'm sorry, do you see these?
No.
You could,
You're right.
You could mess up on a freestyle and be like, you're the hottest in Canada, go down there and freeze.
Yeah.
There's your marketing. It's that,
and then it's the marketing
culture. It's harder now.
And the funny thing about it too is, like, sometimes you get into it, like, you can go in, you can write the hot record. It's not necessarily you, but you're being marketed a certain way, and now you have to live up to that expectation.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, when I think about that, I think about like Lady Gaga, or like early days of Nicki Minaj, where she looked like a totally different act. Like, she was like a pop. Remember, she used to have the
100%.
You know what I mean? But after her star got bright, she's like, no, that's not who I am. And you gonna get these bars now.
Yo, you know what's another good example of that? In the pop world, Pink. Pink came out. When Pink came out, look, guys, when Pink came out, Pink was supposed to be like the TLC for white girls. And
no, I thought she wanted to be that, but they were trying to make her like the new Christina Aguilera, and that's why she's like, nah, I'm out.
She's like, this is not who I am.
Yeah,
she like took the off ramp. Is that crazy? She took an off. She took an off ramp and was like, I'm gonna do me, and you know, but
look at the longevity though, right? Look at the longevity, right? Like, not to throw shade on any of the other acts from around that time, the Britneys or the, you know, but like Pink is, like Michie was saying, she was able to be her true self, carve out her audience and cater to her audience in order to sustain longevity in the game. And that's what goes back to what we were talking about, you know, earlier in some other podcasts in regards to the genre and how young and fresh the genre is, right? Like, we're only really seeing original acts gracefully age in the business. Like, when you see Jay-Z do a deal with the NFL and then 2 years later he's got Dr. Dre on stage, like, those are original pioneers. Like, this is our first chance.
I kid you not. When I was a kid, I remember a moment where I was thinking, what are these guys going to be like when they become grown men? I remember thinking, like, listening to music, and I literally had the thought, I was like, this is dope and all, but what are these guys going to do when they're grown men? And I can't wait to see that. And now I'm seeing it.
But I love that though, because
the evolution.
And it's like hip hop is a combat sport. You know what I'm saying? Where it's literally kill or be killed, you know? Like, when you look at acts like Kendrick, right? We see Kendrick's been dormant and quiet for years, but you're waiting for Kendrick because he's produced at such a high clip before. Not everybody is afforded that luxury, right? Like, you come out, you got a smash record or a good, look at Roddy Ricch right now. They're like ready to cancel Roddy Ricch after having like the biggest records of 2020. And it's like, that's the sport you're in, right? But to be able to see, you know, a LL Cool J go for 3, closing in on 4 decades, get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, watch Jay-Z do the big, like, Jay-Z was boss this weekend. Like, in all seriousness, it could have been him on stage because he's the guy who's got the deal. But he's like, nah, we in LA. You know what? Let's do it. Let's do Dre Day. Let's, you know, like, just big moves and big business. But I love to see it because, like, similar to when Barack became the president, it's like sometimes you need to know you need to see something in order for you to be like, all right, you know what? I can do that. It's tangible.
You need to trust his insight as a hip hop artist to work with it. And that's the part of it. Sometimes they don't trust the female hip hop artist insight into marketing some of those things. And that's what we have to change. Like, I love MC Light. She was the voiceover. I'm sure she could have some just as much insight. Do you know what I mean? But there's so much thing. And I'm only saying that when we bring it back to structure and the woman problem. We live the same dream. We're there with whatever. Some have sold more than whatever. The Brat went platinum. Some of the insight that the women have to offer, it goes with the program too. It's not going to go up against Instagram. We're not just going to go out there and have only women festivals if you hire us. Do you know what I mean? And I say that because I talk to a lot of the mature women in the business, and everybody have tried at some point to help add that insight. So I think we're getting to that level now where Jay-Z proved it, that, you know, our insight is important. And just as that golden era kind of hip hop alumni, it is important. And I just think that now when that balances out, and that's what Canada is going to have to that's what Canada is going to offer. I do think a lot of the women here too really do consume a lot of hip hop and are more on the administrative side and know more about behind the scenes and whatever, that they don't all have to be artists now, because you have women that are representing that just didn't all rap. As in the US, when you have the women that the Shantae get the shows, the Heather B's they're usually coming from a rap, the Light get the voice from a rap thing. You have women here that do not rap, and they have such insight in terms of music business. So it's just aligning what we see America doing with some of we have here. Because to me, it's like there's 2 other women there, and to me that's cool. That's fly to me. You know what I mean? So more of this, because we do it here in Canada all the time. We do it here. So, and you fellas let us do it. So I really appreciate the support that we get here. I mean, if we had 10 Drakes and his money, we may have more, you know, over here swinging that bat like here, but he's part of an structure too. He can't do it all for him. Everybody want Drake to fix Canada. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, everyone's got to do their part, but I do love that Canada gives the women some, you know, helps us get out there and give that insight. And I really respect that. So we're just going to see how that matures.
It's so, I love that you talked about insight. You know, that's actually been another theme that we've been talking about in this podcast, the fact that if you don't have certain people in the room, you're not going to get those perspectives to get, to guide that ship and be like, ooh, don't do that, but do this, but don't do that. This is a better decision. This is a better look. We need the Michie Mees. Well, I mean, they're just good, but you can't Google experience.
You can't Google experience, and there's no app for help. Like, you can't.
We need Michie Mees in boardrooms, because we need Michie Mees in boardrooms, because you've done soul mixtapes, you've been on stages, you know what I'm saying? You've gone through the whole.
I've been in a room with a lot of other women that were right there with me, going like this. I love that. So if you don't have me in the room, like, but no, I remember whatever. So when they see me talking, like, oh, Michie, when I get the love under comments, you know that a lot of that is because a lot of them were with me. It's not just, okay, go Michie the rapper. I don't have I'm not on the charts. I'm not on the, let us level up and tell you. It's not about that. It's the experience and the people that they're like, just go. Just, you know, it's that support. And the reason I keep wanting to show even the older men, my age and older, I was like, yo, you guys been rapping, don't give up now. There's nobody, we're the same age. If Jay-Z's doing that, I'm not quitting, because my peers that started with me in they're not quitting. They're just finding places to wet their feet. Plus they got the budget to open up doors for other peers that are doing stuff. We don't have a peer system here.
That's
like
important.
If I had the bag, I'm gonna add blah 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 blah. Poor Maestro's to be over there helping, and me over here, Cardi over there helping, and whatever, doing what we can. So it's just the balance out. But we're all maturing, and you guys are doing an awesome job. And I learned from the millennials. I learned from you guys. If it wasn't for that experience and having the platforms, like, you're my Google. You know what I mean? So I learned. But
I think that's important, right? Like that is important. Sometimes, just as we've discussed in the past about having people from different ethnic makeups and backgrounds in the boardroom, you also need to have different ages in the boardroom too, because things don't work the way they worked 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And I think some places and some companies, for instance, like, I know Cardi's over there doing some A&R work, and he's on with Universal as a VP, and he's got a big role over there. And that is what you need. You need people who have run the gamut. You need people who have toured the country in a minivan and then gone on to tour the continent in a tour bus, to give you the ins and outs and give the new artists the game. Here's how you do this. Here's how we can get to radio. Here's how we can. But now, speaking
it just seems they're really ready.
Yeah, but now speaking of radio, we're doing an iHeartRadio podcast right now. Of course, everybody can stream over there on that. We all work in radio. We work as members of media in radio, in a different genre of radio. Let's put it that way, right? This past week, we saw the landscape for hip hop and R&B in the city change yet again. It almost feels like, even though there is still a signal to where you can hear hip hop and R&B, there's a bunch of red tape around that particular signal in terms of growth, because it'll get in the way of other signals. So it feels marginalized once again, right? When you look at the overall impact of just terrestrial radio and what it means for music, not even just hip hop, but music in general, and where we are in a city like Toronto to not have a hip hop and R&B outlet once again, how does it make you feel? Like, I feel like you might have seen this. You're on their third lap.
Yeah.
Right now, right? So, like, first off, how does it make you feel? And second off, what can we do as members of media to kind of like big up that voice a little bit?
Wow. In terms of what you could do is just, you could do whatever you can within your thing. I think sometimes it's what you do once you leave there too. And it's the insight that you give others that are trying to maneuver in it all. And yeah, I seen it come and go. And I was on the advisory board, even from Denim Jaw to the Milestone, Slave, Don't Revere Your Slave, was the second song played after Bob Marley's One Love on that dial. It was a part of Mr. Fitzroy Gordon when he started there too. I actually, before he passed, he had suggested to be on the Sunday show, The Grapevine, like these things, but I wasn't ready. So there's people that have reached out throughout the time and know the journey that have helped people find their way. I think just helping the young artists, telling them the truth. Not everybody, not just hooking up friends, not just hooking up we have this discussion with like artists in general about, who's doing what and who's doing what. Calling them on their bluff in terms of, we want to see artists perform. Instead of a picture, I want to see performances. There's so much stuff that'll kind of help the agencies see that there's artists there that can actually perform. And why don't we invest in a little tour, a little Mary Kay tour here, a little Mac tour here, a little, just whatever has to happen. It doesn't have to be on the big scale of what America has done. I mean, we had Live Nation do the tours with the Chocolate and Classified, and so we see it made a little something, and it made noise. If we can't leave the club scene and we have a smaller club scene, a venue, just support that. We may not be able to get it on the mass level because our infrastructure is still different, and a lot of it's the mom and pops. Now with COVID, things shutting down and open, we have to see which clubs survived, and then kind of starting this again. Right. So it's just for the sponsors that can, because when the American acts come here, money goes. So I'm just saying that I just think that there can be a little pocket of sponsorship. And that comes from the people that love hip hop, that we're in that room working at some of these companies and hiring people that can add some little hip hop urban insight to your marketing plan over there at, add a little fun. I seen graffiti leave and come back. It was a bad thing, good thing, bad thing, good thing, bad thing. Good thing.
Damn.
Get off
What a perspective. That's a crazy perspective.
Yeah, you're right. No, she's right though. Graffiti's like a seesaw. It's like they'll condemn it over here on this building and then hire the artist to do it on the other building. You know what I mean?
Banksy selling paintings for like millions, right?
Yeah.
People died on tracks. I'm telling you, committed. Like I'm just seeing.
Falling off of billboards and whatnot. Yeah.
It was just seeing that alone. I think that is one of the funniest things for me, is to see graffiti, good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. So that's my joke of how hip hop has grown, is just watch graffiti. Watch what we do to graffiti next.
It's so true.
Future going down.
Michie, I just wanted to say something that you said earlier. I just wanted to give it up appreciation that, through this industry, you were able to be your genuine self. And the reason why I say that is because it seems like when it comes to Black females within this industry specifically, it seems like sometimes we're put into a box of stereotypes of, like specifically, we're seen as aggressive, abrasive, sexualized. And the fact that you were able to continuously be you and like authentically you, I think is rare.
They left me no choice
to be like appreciated and exposed and spoken about, because that's tough. And then to actually make it through being your true self. Like you mentioned, Lauryn Hill, she's a great example, but there's not many. It's quite rare to see the authentic, true self of a Black woman come up as themselves. So yeah, I just want to say, I give it up to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for that and recognizing that, because it's not easy. I mean, you have teams that come, you have money that comes to you, you have men that come to you, and there's so much things offered to make it, and they don't even know. So all I had to do was fight. And the good thing about it is that Canada brought me there before. If I didn't do it so early and at a young age, I wasn't there before, and had a team with me that helped me and fought with me, even when it taught me how to fight for myself. I was like, you know what? I don't even want to be that. I'm not putting on the panty. Take off, move the picture. You know what I mean? No. Like I just had to find my own little way. Like, consider me funny. I'll be the class clown, but can't do it. I can't do whatever. And yet I'm on the beach like this in Jamaica, like, woo, see a panty.
But there's a time and place for the panty. There's a different time and a different place for the panty.
Exactly, time and place and everything. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, okay, women, we had to learn to mature in the business with the help of someone, with the help of men. The men were running it, still are to some mean. So in terms of cutting those checks, so where the checks go, you got to follow the money.
I get
so
that.
It's hard to be yourself. So thank you for recognizing that.
No, I appreciate it. And it helps women like us, Michie, like just being in the industry, like knowing that we're not a monolith, that we can each carve out our own paths and be ourselves, authentically ourselves, and it can work. Seeing the example that you've given us is like, it's great. It's a great representative for us.
Thank you. I love our Canadian women, man. We have so much to offer the world. Yes. We have so much to offer the world. And when we rep for Canada, we rep for our country. Like,
I'll be honest with you.
We're like those Raptors. When they say that about the Raptors, I do say that. Anything from around here in these parts, we rep for the whole country.
It's so true.
I'll be honest with you, wherever I go in the world, it's always a point of like the Toronto woman. You know, you go to this place and you just people love Toronto women. Canadian women. I know you said Canadian, but in particular Toronto women. And people love it. And going back to Leah's point and just the authenticity of it, like, I love the fact that a Persian girl can walk up the street and be like, yo, wagwan to her Jamaican friend. You know what I mean? Like, but that walk of life is truly unique to maybe Toronto and Queens.
No, you imagine how I felt with Ragged Death. They're like, what are you doing with all those white guys? Michie Ragged Death, what are you doing with them? Like, those are my friends.
They're your friends.
What are you talking about?
No, but I think that's truly fantastic. And I think, as far as diversity goes, and we're in a crazy time, man. 2022, we're looking at convoys, we're looking at a whole bunch of stuff, but through all of it, it almost feels like the country is losing a bit of that identity. And it's turning into something that I don't personally know or recognize. And I'm just fearful of that. So what I'm saying is, like, we need more people who have voices to be vocal about our walk of life. Going back to, Canadian girls, Toronto women, like, you guys are on the radio. You guys use that, Azalea, Jamar, you guys are talking, about your culture and whatever on do that. Leah's representing a different perspective on her show. Do that. Like, we can't lose those voices because it's divisive times right now. Yeah. And it feels like a step backwards. So we need everybody on those front lines, most including, women like yourselves who have voices and who represent minorities, to just be like, hey, this isn't always what it is. Like, we love each other no matter who you are. Because that, I think, is the true identity to people.
That's so Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so Canadian. That's so true. We have our own identity, and I love that.
I love it too. Anywhere you travel, everywhere, just say I'm from Canada.
Yeah,
a little different.
Yes, Canadian. I love Canadian. I always start a Canadian party everywhere I go. Every bar in Jamaica.
Good. Yeah, link up.
I love it. So okay.
I love that. And honestly, Dames, that was such a great way to conclude this amazing discussion. I think we got into a lot, and I think we gave the dues where it was due to Michie. It's so awesome.
I just want to, before we wrap up, let everybody know that Michie just dropped her album, Bad Gal's Revenge.
Hey.
Bad Gal's Revenge. It's a mad thing. Sexy. And if you didn't know, Michie, I want to also publicly thank you for allowing me to be your tour DJ. Michie's taking me and Michie
always shows up. Thank you, Jamar.
We've gone to Jamaica. We've done our thing here in Toronto. It is just wonderful to play for you and play with you.
And look at Leah trying to get a little lesson or two on the turntable. Sure, we got to Jamaica. Hold on a second.
I'm Jamaican too.
Michie, big up yourself. Since I reached Canada, you show me so much love.
Yeah, man.
Big up, love and respect. It's
Thank you. Check out michiemee.ca.
There it is.
I released the Wanna Be Your Slave on vinyl, so I've got some 21-year-old vinyl I'm reselling. So check out michiemee.ca. And thank you all for having my back and supporting me and having me up here and making some relevance of me again. So thank you.
Oh, stop it. Michie Mee.
I know. Get out of here, relevant. You're a legend.
Oh, Canada. I love us. I love Canada. I love what you guys are doing. Big up iHeart.
Yes. And everybody, don't forget to subscribe to iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts to listen to even more. And we're going to have another discussion next week, similar to this. Thank you for listening.
Salud.